Thanks so much for joining us today on Feeling Good, sponsored by Warren County Community Services. I'm your host, Shelley Abrams, and I am delighted to introduce once again, for a year in review, our Congressman, and this is Congressman Greg Landsman for our Congressional District 1, correct?
Yep, 1st Congressional District, yeah.
And we were just chatting, and 1 year ago today, or at least in these few days, I was interviewing you for the very first time.
1 year ago.
And I thought it might be interesting to have you share with us a year in review, 2023, and then maybe a few forecasts for 2024.
Sure, no problem.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Sure. So where to begin? We were just starting to chat. You had orientation was the first thing.
Yeah, so after you get elected to Congress, which obviously my first time, so I didn't really know what to expect. There is an orientation almost immediately. I think it was within days of the election, where you go to DC, you learn some really important stuff about setting up the office, and you start to work with your colleagues, in terms of like what committee assignments and what makes the most sense in terms of the work that you're going to do. So there's that whole process, but you're in DC, you're with members of Congress who've been there for a long time because they join, chunks of the orientation, particularly, or at least, many of them do, to see folks that you've only seen on television. They're now, right there.
Right.
You're part of your meetings. And so it was pretty surreal and exciting. But I like to do the work, so I was very anxious to get up and running, to get sworn in, and of course that took.
And I was going to say, and that was different.
So
wasn't it?
we you get sworn in on a Tuesday. You have your family there.
Right.
All of the members of Congress get sworn in simultaneously. So the speaker, once the speaker's elected, the speaker does the oath. We all take the oath. And your family's there. And, my wife, Sarah, and I have 2 children. Elijah's 12, Maddie's 13. It was really exciting to have them there. And, of course, we didn't have a speaker on Tuesday. And we didn't have a speaker on Wednesday. And we didn't have a speaker on Thursday. My family, at that point, had to go home. So Friday, I was just sort of, there by myself. And I think very late that evening, we finally, on the 15th ballot, got a speaker, which made history. The United States has never had that many votes for speaker. And, and it was too bad. It was, I think, embarrassing for the country. Ultimately, we got a speaker, but to have that kind of chaos has been really frustrating because it's stuck around. So there's a lot of us who are there to govern, and then there are way too many that aren't, and they have a lot more control than they should, and so they want to slow us down and keep us from getting things done, and hopefully that's going to change soon.
Well, I do have to say that entire time we had the TV on and we're watching for you.
Yeah.
And we would say, oh, there's Greg. Oh, we can see Greg there, type thing. But you have actually been on television, national and otherwise, quite a bit.
Yeah.
for a variety of different reasons. And I think what I usually hear is that you're trying to work with both sides of the aisle to get things done.
I've always believed in big coalitions, and if you're going to get something big done,
right,
you gotta have people who don't agree coming together. It's how we got the preschool promise done in Cincinnati. It's how we got the big transit and infrastructure investment done at City Hall. Almost all of the big things that I was able to get done happened in a bipartisan coalition.
Right.
Plus this Congress is pretty evenly divided. The Republicans have the majority by a couple votes, and even if Democrats get the majority in 2024, it's going to be slim. So everyone should be focused on working across the aisle because we need each other.
Right.
And we've gotten, as a freshman, in the minority, you don't usually get a bill passed, or if you do, it's not a very substantive bill. We are looking at passing several, and we already passed a major bill out of committee, which is called the PBM Accountability Act. Which these are the folks who work with Medicare and Medicaid, and they buy all of the prescription drugs that seniors use. They don't disclose those transactions, so all of the savings go to shareholders and not to seniors. And our bill, which will come to the floor hopefully and become law, will save seniors millions of dollars.
Well, that is so good.
And it's a bipartisan bill. I mean, it passed out of committee 44-0. Most of the time you see these votes along party lines.
Right.
This one passed with every Republican, every Democrat.
I actually had someone ask me from my one of the groups I belong to, ask me if I would ask you, how has the healthcare situation impacted our district, and what initiatives are possible on the horizon to aid the gap between people who seem well insured and others who are underinsured or maybe lack insurance at all.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of big things that I have to get done. Our bill will help, the PBM Accountability Act. Again, I do believe it will pass, bipartisan, and will save seniors millions. The other bills that we have submitted, introduced, one is to cap the cost of insulin for all children across the country, and the bill has helped, I think, along with the president's comments at the State of the Union, it has helped convince the pharmaceutical companies to go ahead and do it without the legislation. Now, we still need the legislation in case they decide that they are going to stop doing it. Ultimately, we've got to, I believe, allow folks to buy into Medicaid. That's the public option, and to pay for it, not to run up, any additional debt, but to pay for it by making sure everyone, particularly billionaires and these big corporations, pay all their taxes. You and I, we pay all of our taxes.
Right.
If you get to a certain, wealth point in this country, you can hire somebody to figure out how to pay only a portion of your taxes. And it's not illegal, but it should be. I mean, ultimately, we need everyone paying all their taxes. And that will help us ensure that people have insurance.
Right.
But also, it will mean, in the long run, that we can start reducing the taxes on working folks. I mean, everybody else. So I'm a big believer in fixing the tax code if you're, and doing these big things to help people, especially with, big costs like healthcare.
So when you have initiatives in your mind that you would like to see discussed, do you gather round with, just kind of informal discussions with other legislators and say, hey, I'm thinking about this. What do you think about that? Is it an informal kind of thing? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple steps. So, and we pick up a lot of legislative ideas and ultimately bills that we introduce from the work that we do in here. So rarely am I in DC and I think, we should do this. I mean, sometimes, but most of the time it's that we toured some plant. We had a roundtable discussion with veterans.
Right.
And you start to hear some pretty serious, issues that could be solved with legislation. So then, so we just did a big roundtable discussion with all of these mental health professionals, and they said, okay, here are the big stumbling blocks. We take that and we see what bills have already been introduced that could solve some of these problems. If they are already there, we ask to co-sponsor to help pass that particular bill. If it's not, we ask around what do we need to know. We ask other members, we ask the administration, staff talks to staff, and then we get in a room, our office, and we just talk it out. And ultimately, if we're going to go forward, we start to draft bill language. And my feeling always is I'm a Democrat, find a Republican. And so that we can have a bipartisan, because introducing a piece of legislation is one thing. Getting it passed is what matters most. And you really do need to have both Republicans and Democrats, especially in this Congress, leading on a bill in order to get it passed.
So what has been the most surprising? Or maybe there have been several things that have been most surprising to you that maybe you didn't anticipate?
Sure. So one is, and I should have, but I kind of had my head down. I was just focused on running, and I still was at City Hall, and we got 2 young children.
Right.
I didn't realize how much I would miss home, because you're in DC voting. And because of all this chaos from, a portion of the Republican conference, not all of them, but just, some of them have really pulled the Republican leadership into chaos. We've been there more than usual. I didn't appreciate how much I would miss, not just my home, like obviously my family.
Sure.
But I just miss being in Cincinnati. I miss being in Hamilton County. I miss being up here in Warren County. My community's here, and I didn't realize how much I love being here with all of you, as opposed to being there. I mean, it's a very good job. It's if you do it well, you can have huge impact. So I want to get good at it. And that means figuring out how to make it work. But I love getting on that plane and coming home and then just being out.
Right.
That's a big one. The other one is less interesting, I think, but really important. I didn't realize how seldom the House and the Senate interact. Which is hugely problematic, because in order to get a bill done, it's got to pass the House and the Senate,
right,
and then be sent to the president. But you don't really see the Senate much, or senators. And so, I try to, with my bills, figure out who in the Senate we can work with, so that it doesn't just pass the House,
right,
and it becomes law. So the 2 chambers are right there.
In the same complex.
In the same building.
Right.
But I would say that, if you ask most United States senators, have you seen a member of the House lately? They'd say no. And for most members of the House, have you seen a United States? No. And that's got to change. You got to start seeing more bipartisan and bicameral House, Senate, working groups. That's the only way we're going to get big things done.
Well, you talk about enjoying being home and being out in the different communities. And I have really been impressed with how many community meetings you have held, town hall meetings. And we have attended at least 3 of them. How many did you end up having?
We've had 15 town halls. A few of those were virtual, because we want to make sure it's accessible to everyone. Most of those town halls have been in person. So, I mean, I would say at least 10 in-person town halls.
We were so impressed with the fact that you didn't have like papers, agendas, so forth that you read from. You just greeted the folks. You talked to us just the way you're talking with me right now, and then you opened it up for Q&A.
Yeah, I find the town halls to be an opportunity to give people a quick update at the top, 5-8 minutes tops, and then it's their hour to ask questions, to voice their concerns, share something that they're appreciative of, but it's their time, and we pick up. I always say, we shouldn't leave an event, whether it's ours or somebody else's, without picking up some work, some way that we're going to help folks. And so at these town halls, we pick up casework and sometimes legislative ideas, or we're asked to, sign on to a bill, and then we go research the bill, and if it makes sense, we sign on, and then we follow back with people. So, because ultimately, the most important part of this job is being the representative for folks here. And so first and foremost, we work for them. We, the whole team, and I work for you all. And I think a lot of people who get elected to national office, local, state, but national in particular, I think they lose sight of that, or like they sort of get elected to a national office and then kind of disappear. And then there are members of Congress who never do. And I grew up working for or knowing those members who never lose sight of their district. And so that's always been the kind of member of Congress I want to be. So,
well, just to let you know, people really appreciate that. Because I've heard more than several people comment on the number of town hall meetings and the number of people that attend them.
I mean, it's amazing. I like having 30 to 50 people just because then everyone feels like they can participate. But we get 75 to 100 for some of the, I mean, they're always full. So, and I learn a lot, my staff learns a lot, and, I get to see friends, and that's my favorite part. Like it's a good, and my daughter usually comes to those with me.
I have seen your daughter and your son, but I have seen your daughter.
She's much more likely to come to a town hall than he is. He's, he's super busy, but also she likes listening to the conversation.
As I recall, when we talked last year, you mentioned that she gave you tips on campaign. Dad, I would do this. I forget exactly what it was. But,
I forget too, but she does it a lot. She'll say, she'll see things that I missed. She's so perceptive. Or sometimes I don't hear the question as precisely as she does. It's really amazing. And so I'll answer the question that I thought I heard, and she'll be like, that's not exactly what he asked.
And how old is she?
13.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's always been something, she hears every detail.
Yes.
And she cares.
Yeah, very good. Well, as we're a year in review, what about the upcoming year? What do you see in 2024?
Well, I'm an optimistic person. It's just I think a pretty good way to live. So
I agree.
I'm optimistic about 2024. We've gotten better as a staff in terms of getting things done, whether it's casework or legislation. So I'm optimistic about a series of bills that we're working on to help childcare providers, to help worker-owned small businesses, to really help veterans who are struggling with PTSD. A bunch of bills that are focused on helping folks here. And then I'm hopeful that the speaker sort of gets to a point where he's had enough of this group that, some people call them the chaos caucus. It's just 20, 25 people that don't really want to move much forward, and we have way too much to get done. We got to get a budget passed. There's emergency assistance that we need to make sure gets to Ukraine. If Putin wins, it's like Hitler winning in Poland. Putin, winning in Ukraine, that's just the beginning. And then we're in a big global mess.
Right.
And so imagine if the United States and our European allies had stopped Hitler in Poland and got him back. Imagine what the world would look like right now.
Know.
And so that's really important. The issue in Israel and the situation in Gaza, that is important. The southern border and dealing with that crisis, hugely important. So there are just really significant, bills that need to pass, and the only way we're going to do that is the way we've done the other big bills. It's been the 300 members of Congress in the middle. So you got 20 to 30, people on the far left. They aren't going to vote for the bill. 20 to 30 people on the far right, they're not going to, but the vast majority of us will. But it requires the speaker to bring us that bill. And, they've done it on the default crisis. They've done it to, on a continuing resolution to keep the government open. But we need to do it on the actual budget, and we need to do it on the emergency aid package, which will most likely include a pretty serious fix to some of the issues at the southern border.
Well, I recall when we first talked about being involved as a citizen, being informed was critical.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm always telling my friends. You must be informed and dig deep for the truth.
Yeah.
Try to peel away.
It's really important now more than ever because really good, the algorithm. I mean, in addition to cable news, which sort of feeds you, unless you're toggling between Fox and CNN and MSNBC, you're getting sort of one side of the story. Local news is great, but local news doesn't cover national stuff the way the networks don't, or at least don't have the audience. And then you're on social media, which I got off of. I mean, we still post things because it's important to communicate and engage. I'm just not personally, I don't want to be overly influenced by any of that or influenced by any of that at all, because you end up getting trapped in your own algorithm where it's just reinforcing what you believe, and then you're just not challenged to think about the other side.
Right.
And that's why I like being out in the community and talking, having actual conversations, because you get those perspectives, and that's what should be informing those of us in elected office or as your citizens, as opposed to whatever your algorithm is giving you on social media.
And I'm unfortunately hearing and learning so much more about the impact of AI and the whole algorithm impact as well. Very scary. In many ways. And it takes work, but you have to research to get to the true facts.
1,000%.
So what would you like to leave us with in terms of connection with you? Do you enjoy, I mean, I just happen to have a couple pieces of typewritten suggestions from a friend of mine that you know, and he put these together, and he always feels like he's trying to make impactful suggestions.
Yeah.
And when he shares them with you, I think he feels a certain amount of satisfaction that at least he's gotten them. I mean, he will
Well,
sit
I read
down.
everything. I read it all, and I
Yeah.
pass it off to staff, and they read it
Yes,
all. And sometimes
yes.
it's things we can work on. Sometimes it's a bill that somebody else is working on.
Right.
But yeah, I would encourage folks to sign up for our newsletter. We send out an update every week. You just if you just type in my name in Google, I believe the congressional website comes up first, and you can sign up for the newsletter. People should call, email us, and come to a town hall. I think people would be surprised at how often we can help with something.
It does make a difference, right?
Yeah.
It does.
I believe really strongly, and felt like this at City Hall. It doesn't really matter if somebody calls and says I need help with whatever it is. Maybe the city's involved, but even if the city's not, we still have a role to play in helping. So if it's a state issue, or if it's a private sector issue, or if it's a federal issue, we still try to figure out how to help them get to the right person. And like if you call into customer service for Verizon or something else, you want that person to not just transfer you, but there's like when they say like I'll stay on the line with you. That's the kind of customer service that we try to provide.
Right. Well, I feel like you have really achieved that. I feel
we'll get even better.
Well, and we appreciate everything that you do. And clearly, I have to say that as a freshman coming in to Congress, you are very often interviewed for your views.
Yeah.
And I would say that speaks well of your reputation in terms of being a community builder.
Yeah, I mean, I think oftentimes the news, cable news, they go after the people who are making a lot of noise on the left and people who are making a lot of noise on the right. And more they want somebody who has perspective in terms of what, middle America wants and is thinking about. And I like playing that role. I mean, it's like, well, yes, here's what the far left says, here's what the far right says, but here's what I hear, back home in Southwest Ohio. And I think that's a healthy perspective, an important perspective to have as part of the national. Otherwise, we're going to get, completely overrun by these, more extreme views.
Well, I appreciate so much you taking time out of especially your family time today, because I know that's very important to you. And spending some time here with us just to kind of give us some perspective. I know we visited you in your office when we were in Washington, D.C. for a conference, and you were getting ready to go to another meeting, but you took time to, say hello. You've had visitors, I'm sure, haven't you?
I love it. That's the best.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes.
I actually, I hate when I can only come in and out. But
well, we didn't really make an. I think
know, but they, still, you want to use. My feeling is when I'm not home, whether I'm out in the community or I'm in D.C., I got to use every hour to get things done, like to work. And so our schedules are so packed, which is good. But then somebody, friends pop in or people from the district pop in, and, I wish I had more than 5 to 10 minutes to spend with folks.
That was fine, though. We were there for USGLC, which is the global leadership group that we belong to, which is another great group because they believe in diplomacy and, try to bring in, invite guests from all viewpoints to come in, but they have the common good in mind. And I feel like you have the common good in mind when you are thinking through, your decision making and so forth.
Thank you.
So appreciate that. Peace in the new year for sure.
Yes, 100%.
And we hope that you as our audience will follow up on this program today. Contact your local Congressman, Greg Landsman, because you should be feeling good that we have the type of congressman that we do. And on that note, I wish you well, peace in the new year, and we'll see you soon. Bye for now.